What's up, y'all? Hope you guys are having a great day. Last week, we talked about what it means to invest in what God is placing in our lives, in our reach, and not just, faking it and being content, but being ready to move to the new areas of our lives. And this week, we have a similar message to last week. The title is Dying in Potential. Dying in the garden of I wish I would have did this. If only I knew this. In the dreams that will only stay as dreams. What if Benji from Simeon Academy years ago, what if he did not get in that altercation? He had the potential to make it to the league. What if things would have been different? Would he have been on the same stage as Jordan? And I also think about this. What if Fred Hampton, on that day when he was drinking poison from a cup and he was asleep, what if everything was different? What if he trusted in his gut and knew that O'Neal wasn't on their side? What if things were different? In his potential, yes, there are moments where it's us causing a halt to our potential, or a halt to what growth is going to happen. But also external forces, external circumstances can prevent us from moving forward as well. And there's moments where we see the narrow road. We're going the right way. We're listening to God. We're doing everything right. But also there are times where we fall victim to what is pulling us away from our promised land. And that was Moses. You see, the Israelites, Moses had to deal with a lot. They got delivered from Egypt, but they weren't truly delivered. They were free from the bondage of slavery physically, but spiritually they were still bound to where they came from. And they were more familiar with the past than they were about what God was doing, because they was like, man, this is a part of us. Even though their identity wasn't in the past, God took them out and was like, hey, like, your identity is in me. I made you. I made a way for you to come out of what you were in. And Moses had potential. And if you read over the passages at the beginning of the Bible, in Exodus, you will see that Moses had the potential to be a great leader. And he did that. He was a great leader until one moment. Moses, he died on the other side, on the other side of the door of potential. And he was still alive. How is that? When he was, at the rock, he allowed the people to challenge his faith. You see, you do not have to be not breathing to be potentially dead. Moses acted out of frustration, entertaining the noise around him and not listening to the source, our Abba Father. And for me, I've done that before, where like I know it's like God is telling me, hey, go to this job, go this way, and I'm like, all right, and then I tell people. See, sometimes we shouldn't be telling people everything, right? And I'll tell people like, hey, God is telling me to do this, and then they like, hey, but what about this? Like, you got this issue, they at this, like, over here, even with different schools. It's like, man, like, but what about the kids? Like, they're not getting fights and like all this. I'm like, no, like, hey, I had to learn of like, if God is telling me to do this, like, I got it. You know what I mean? I got it. Like, he prepared me for this season. And if I listen to what you're telling me, I'm gonna be acting out of not only frustration but fear, and fear of the unknown, because I now I'm placing the imagery of what you're saying and now allowing the images of God to have say over everything that I'm doing. For our passage of scripture today, I'm going to be playing from Exodus chapter 17, verse 1 to 7 NIV, and also Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 51 to 52. They're both NIV, New International Version, and I'm going to be playing it for we can all listen to it. Here it is.
The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
So for the Deuteronomy chapter 32, it's actually verse 48 to 52.
On that same day the Lord told Moses, "Go up into the Abarim range to Mount Nebo in Moab, across from Jericho, and view Canaan, the land I'm giving the Israelites as their own possession. There on the mountain that you have climbed, you will die and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. This is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah, Kadesh, in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore, you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel."
You see, with Moses, it wasn't that he necessarily hit the rock, right? He was gonna hit the rock and it was gonna flow. But from my opinion, he was punished because, as Deuteronomy said, his faith. Moses cried out and said, "What am I supposed to do with these people?" He didn't consult God as like, "God, what do you want me to do with these people?" And we find ourselves in those places. Like for me, like I put myself out there and I'm like, "God, what am I supposed to do?" And then God is sitting there, is like, "What are you talking about? What are you supposed to do?" You already know, bring me into the mix. You can't do this by yourself. Why are you acting like you're a God and you're not? Like in your carnal mind, why are you acting like you're more powerful than you are? Like, stop capping. Like, why are you doing that? And Moses did not invite God into the situation. Instead, he lost faith that God would provide in that moment and decided to take matters into his own hands. And because of that, Moses, he was outside of his promised land. He was impotent. He was, in a way, he was at his funeral before his funeral even came, because his potential was standing there looking at what he would have had if he did everything according to what God was instructing him to do. And quite often, I died in the land of potential. Just like Moses, I often allow the words, concerns, and thoughts of others, like I said earlier, to distract me and rock my faith. Doubts came in where security once was. I hit the rock out of frustration, attempting to find out what I can do, not what God is going to do. So as you move towards your potential land, your potential island, number one, I want you to trust God. He has prepared the land for your arrival. Have crazy faith and trust Him. I know it's going to be foolish to everybody. The Bible talks about like it's going to be foolish. It won't make no sense. But have crazy faith, because when you get there, like, man, it's going to be amazing. Number two, prepare. Don't just think like, "Hey, God got this." What I'm saying, I'm not gonna have to do any homework. No, you still in school. Life is school. The reason you are where you are right now is because God is preparing you for what is to come. Are you preparing yourself? And you can derail your growth when you step out of God's will and try to move faster than Him. That has happened to me as well, looking for jobs, trying to provide for myself, and not seeking out God for that parental guidance. And we have to put God in the parent sense of like, hey, He's our Father. In the same way, like you go to your earthly father, your mom, for advice, for to mentors, to counselors. Go to the source that created everything, who created all the counselors, everything. Go to Him first and foremost. And the last point is this: go forward and do not look back. As you move forward to the areas God is calling you to, do not look back on the things that once held you hostage. I look back on my past a lot, not because of things that, like, that they held me hostage, but because it reminds me of what God had done. And I see the different things of like, hey, this happened because of this and this and this. And I wouldn't change it because I am the man that I am today, the leader that I am today, because God allowed me to grow through those struggles that I thought was like crazy in the moment. And now it's like, man, those are my pillars of my monument of what God is doing. Like just like in the Old Testament, in the Bible, where they'll place something there to remind themselves of what God had done. And then they moved on. They did not stay there. They moved on to what God was going to do. Have confidence and assurance and move forward. Also, speak words of affirmation about yourself. Self care is important. Your mental health is sacred. It's important to have that. And lastly, for this last point, as for me, I did not go to school to be a teacher, yet God opened those doors. I did not foresee myself having desires to be a youth pastor. I remember conversations with so many people like, man, you can do this. Like, I see you like preaching. I can see you being a pastor. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like, I did not want that, and I tried. Like, to be honest, I ran. I did not try to run. I ran. I did not try. I ran. And I ran. However, God created moments in my life that where I stepped into leadership. It's crazy in a sense because those leadership opportunities, it happened because I was around people where I was able to be vulnerable. Different retreats. I remember Koinonia at Lewis University, being there and seeing like, hey, everybody is the same, and I wanted a piece of that. The bridge program, how it instilled into me that I can give back to peers that are coming behind me. And I went through the same program, and because of all that, like, I wanted to step in, not leadership, but I wanted to step in that into that community. And I did not I did not know that God was unfolding everything right before my eyes until now. Being a teacher at a high school, being having my master's, having my bachelor's, and having the desires to be a youth pastor. And I had to change the frame of my thinking and saying like, I'm going to be this. I'm going to be a youth pastor. But it wasn't just me saying it. It was me acting it out, going to the right people, the right places for advice, for wisdom, and in those same places, allowing God to work out everything that He had been preparing for years, so I can pour it out into others. And I'm getting closer to those different roles. So today, don't die in the land, in the island of potential. Take the potential that you have. Is great. Everybody talks about the potential. It's like, man, like, if only this didn't happen, if only this injury did not derail him from his future. No. We don't want like of course we want the glory days, but we want to experience what is to come. So allow God to change your mind, to change your focus. Do not hit the rock out of frustration, but instead allow God to revolutionize the way you see life, the way you see your success, the way you see the world. And I know that you guys are going to be doing great things in your lives and in the lives of others. I love you all. And as always, peace. And I'll see you next Friday at the same time, same place, 7 o'clock.